Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to discuss Boris Johnson's withdrawal statement after exiting the leadership contest, which everyone is now assuming Rishi Sunak is going to win, but I can wait till this afternoon on that one. I'm going to go through the statement he made and why he made it by breaking it down. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we're going to do this live, basically. I usually write these things down so that I don't go off kilter, don't ramble on, don't go on too long. But I'm just going to break down the statement that Boris Johnson made because it is not even extraordinary. It's not extraordinary for Boris Johnson. It would be extraordinary for someone who was acting in the best interests of their party or their country. As it is, this statement, for those who haven't read it, and I'm going to go through it bit by bit, is an exercise in gaslighting his supporters, in stroking his own ego, insulting the earth for the person who does take over from Truss, either later today or later this week, and making sure it's a last spiteful act of resentment against the party, making it much more difficult for them to even make it to 2024 for an election, and if they do, to make it there in one piece. In fact, this statement will be, if there is a general election next year, and there could easily be, this statement could well be one of the factors that dictates that. So I don't know why I'm complaining. I don't know why I'm complaining. Boris Johnson's doing me a solid here. But I'm going to read it out. So the first bit. In the last few days, I have been overwhelmed by the number of people who suggested that I should once again contest the Conservative Party leadership, both among the public and among friends and colleagues in Parliament. Now, there may well be a significant number of the public who would want him to be party leader again. Mostly Labour supporters, I suspect. But in Parliament, this is clearly not the case. Where he's left it is he claims that he got the nominations he needed. So for the candidate to enter the race properly, they needed 100 nominations. Now, they also needed a proposer and a seconder, I think. And I think that's in addition to the 100. So realistically, you needed 102. And I don't think any of them can be you. So I think that probably means 103 MPs, including yourself, would need to support your candidacy. Boris Johnson's stooges claimed that he'd met this number on Saturday. Can we see the list of names? No. But I've definitely got them, have you? Then on Sunday. Oh, yeah, I've got the numbers. Have you? Can we see them? No. But he claims he got the 102 necessary. Now, here's the thing. I can believe that there will be some Tory MPs who will nominate one of the candidates but not go public about it. I can totally get that. What I don't get is why Boris Johnson wants us to believe, or thinks that we will believe, that he has double the number of nominations, virtually, double the number of nominations than he has MPs publicly saying they've nominated him. And actually, of the 57 who publicly came out in favour of Boris Johnson, I think I'm right in saying one of them was Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary. But as far as I can recall, he didn't actually say he was nominating Boris Johnson, just that he was leaning towards him. So that's support, sure. Doesn't indicate he would nominate him. But Boris Johnson reckons he had 102. So why aren't Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt claiming that they've got basically double the number of nominations as those publicly declared for them? Why would it be that it's Boris Johnson who has loads of backers who don't want to go public about it? That doesn't make sense. Anyway, he goes on. I have been attracted because I know what he's been attracted to. I have been attracted because I led our party into a massive election victory less than 3 years ago, and I believe I am therefore uniquely placed to avert a general election now. So, pay attention to what he's saying there. First of all, I talked yesterday, so I'm not going to go over it in too much detail, about the fact that he's got this, he won this massive election. He won it on the basis of three major advantages. Corbyn, who's now gone, the Get Brexit Done thing, which is now gone. For some people, they think Brexit is done. For some people, it's never getting done. He's not appealing to either of those. And levelling up, that's not getting done. So his three main pictures are gone. But notice, he doesn't say, because I led our party into a massive election victory, therefore I'm the best one to win the next one. No, he says, and I believe I am therefore, as a result of it, uniquely placed to avert a general election now. So he's saying that anyone else taking over the leadership is going to mean that there's going to have to be a general election. In other words, whoever follows Liz Truss now, if it's not Boris Johnson, and it's not going to be now because he's stepping aside, they are going to be unable to avoid a general election. That's what he wants. He wants, and this is what he's always wanted from the moment he was forced out over the summer, he wants the party to fail. That's why he didn't directly, but he implied his support for Liz Truss. He knew she'd crash and burn. He knew that this time would come, maybe not as soon as it did, and he'd be able to come back in a blaze of glory. Well, if he can't come back in a blaze of glory, okay, we'll make sure that the next person has to crash and burn. If they're a bit more competent and I can't guarantee that that'll happen on their own efforts, I will try and trip them up. That's what this is about. He's now suggesting that the party will be ungovernable and therefore there has to be a general election. Then he says a general election would be a further disastrous distraction just when the government must focus on the economic pressures faced by families across the country. I don't know. I mean, it would be a distraction, I agree. But given that we haven't had a government for quite some time now, of any kind, I think it would be worth it, don't you? But nonetheless, again, he's now trying to say, oh, this would be really bad. So anyone who's responsible for the fact that this general election will have to come early is not thinking of the national interest. That's what he's saying. Then he says, I believe I am well placed to deliver a Conservative victory in 2024. And tonight I can confirm that I have cleared the very high hurdle of 102 nominations. No, but again, notice again what he's saying. I have cleared the very high hurdle. So the spiteful resentment's coming out there. If he's cleared the hurdle, he doesn't need to call it high. He made it. The very high hurdle basically says it wasn't really fair. They did that just to keep me out, which they did. They did that to keep him out. And not just him, the far-right nutters as well. Which has succeeded because none of the far-right nutters have even thrown their hat into the ring this time. Bear in mind, Penny Mordaunt is, of course, very far to the right, but she's not seen as one of the nut jobs. She may be. We may never see. And then he says, including a proposer and seconder, and I could put my nomination in tomorrow. I mean, this is what it was always about. He came back. As soon as he came back, he was clearly standing, but he didn't declare his nomination. He didn't declare that he was standing because he needed to know that he had the nomination so he didn't look like a right tit. So as soon as he was back and he was not going to get the nominations, he then had to find a face-saving way out. He tried to go to Rishi Sunak on Saturday evening, but Sunak knocked him back. We'll come to that in a moment. Then yesterday he went to Penny Mordaunt to try and get her to withdraw. If he had the nominations, why did he need her to withdraw? She knocked him back as well. She basically told him to step down. Which actually is a better way of looking at it, to be fair. Because if Penny Mordaunt had stepped down, there's no certainty at all that her supporters would back Johnson. It could well be that a good half of them or more would go to Sunak instead. Whereas, if Johnson stepped down, it is reasonable to suppose, especially if he urged them, that all of his support would go to Penny Mordaunt just to spite Rishi Sunak. So it actually made more sense if you wanted to stop Sunak for Johnson to step down, which he has now done. He says, there is a very good chance that I would be successful in the election with Conservative Party members. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the one where he's a bit hesitant. Oh, he'll definitely win the election. Yeah, right. But I think I've got a decent chance with the party members. No one doubts that he would have won. If he'd have had the nominations, nobody doubts that the party members would have voted for him. I mean, I don't know. I've not seen recent polls. And I don't know if party members will have reflected. But there's absolutely no person across the political spectrum, whether well-informed or not, that doubts that Boris Johnson would have won if the vote had gone to members. So it's a bit weird that he was less than confident about that one. It says, and that I could indeed be back in Downing Street on Friday. It would actually have been maybe not Friday. But yeah, if he had have got the nominations, he would have become Prime Minister again, which would be a disaster for the Conservative Party. A little bit for the country, but mostly for the Conservative Party. Then it says, but in the course of the last days, I have sadly come to the conclusion that this would simply not be the right thing to do. You can't govern effectively unless you have a united party in Parliament. So basically, he's now blaming the MPs. It's the MPs' fault. They won't get behind me. I won them the election. I would win them the next election. But they won't get behind me because reasons. And although I have, and here we go, salt in the earth. And though I have reached out to both Rishi and Penny, because I hoped that we could come together in the national interest. Hilarious. Oh yeah, the national interest. So the last few weeks, since he stepped down as Prime Minister officially in September, he has been on a series of holidays. He was last in the Caribbean. He just came over for this from the Caribbean, right? His luxury holiday. While other MPs have been in Parliament trying to tackle the various emergencies. Not only the emergencies that he left behind, but the new ones created by his successor, Liz Truss. They've been in Parliament. Now, we may not think that all of them have been trying their best in the national interest, but they've been in Parliament. He's been sunning himself in the Caribbean. Oh, but all of a sudden he's acting in the national interest now. I forgot what we're up to. He says, we have sadly, so I'll read it again. And though I have reached out to both Rishi and Penny because I hoped we could come together in national interest, we have sadly not been able to work out a way of doing this. In other words, it's all their fault. I wanted to work together. I was willing to work together, you know, in the national interest, have this united front. We could all have been a sort of triumvirate, who said that? Was it Ben Wallace who suggested maybe there should be a triumvirate of one of them as Prime Minister and the other two, you know, to try and unite the party. Have a cabinet of unity, basically. He's hinting that that was what he was willing to do. Rubbish. But again, he's now making it their fault. He's sowing divisions within his own party, right? Says, therefore, I am afraid the best thing is that I do not allow my nomination to go forward and commit my support to whoever succeeds. Mm-hmm. I believe I have much to offer, but I'm afraid this is simply not the right time. Oh yeah, he's got much to offer, but apparently he's not going to offer anything unless he's the leader. So not the right time. So he can't offer anything apparently as a backbench MP. Oh no, he can't offer anything there. He'll be back on his holes again, won't he? Oh yeah. So, you know, what? I mean, that is an extraordinary statement at the best of times, but as I say, totally in character for him. The ego, and the fact is what he wants now. See, what he wanted when he had to step down before was for Liz Truss to fail. He sort of knew that would happen. That's why he sort of made it known that his support was behind her so that she would win. He now doesn't think that, I mean, Sunak is overwhelming favourite now, but it could be Mordaunt, who knows. But he now doesn't think that his successor will automatically crash and burn. So he's doing his best to make it so. You know, turn MPs against each other, turn party members against the MPs. There's plenty in the Tory media who will be willing to split over this as well. He wants the party to be ungovernable. He wants there to be a general election next May. I don't know why I'm complaining about this. And he wants them to crash and burn, Labour sweep to a massive victory, so that they beg him to come back again. And maybe in his own mind, there were some people saying, well, Boris Johnson probably doesn't even want to come back because he'll look at the mess and he'll realise that actually, if he doesn't become the next Prime Minister, he can always claim that he would have cleared it up, that he would have won the next election, that everything would have been fine. And he can claim that forever because it'll never be put to the test. So why would he? Because if he'd have become Prime Minister, he'd have to face to the economic storm that's coming next year. He'd have to face up to the fact that he is going to lose the next election if he was Prime Minister, that he would lose it. He would be beaten by Starmer, you know. So for his ego, of course, he wouldn't want to stand. But I think his ego tells him he would have won. I think he probably believes he would have won. And I think he believes if he were to take over as leader of the opposition when the Conservatives lose the election, that he would come back to power. Totally believe that. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Before I ramble on too much, let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.